Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and if your week is not wonderful, I hope you are surviving. I am freshly recording from another day where I cried, where I had another mentee bee at work, really just struggling to survive at this point. I don't know if it's because of how far along I am in my condition or what's going on astrologically wise, but it's a lot and I'm tired and yeah. What I wanted to share this week, Walnut, is I've really had to be brave, and this is on the topic of burnout and knowing my limits and listening to my body and all the things. And I've got a little side note about how I was at counseling the other day too, and that I thought might be really helpful for us. But I've had two instances now, Walnut, where I basically, on a corporate working front, feel like I am just being, I described it as like a wet towel, and I am just being squeezed for every single last drop that that anyone could possibly get out of me. And it's really, really exhausting. I feel very stretched at like all limbs, to the point where I have my fingers in so many pies that I'm not really doing a singular pie well. I'm just floating about, and it just feels so erratic and so scatterbrainy. And I know that you'll kind of empathize with this feeling, Walnut, because I know it is quite common when we've been burnt out and things. But I'm really kind of struggling with that, and I've been feeling really like I have the word doormat just like written across my forehead for some reason. I got really butthurt about another situation. It's kind of storm in a teapot. I don't really need to get into it, but basically I was asked again for something that is well out of my capacity, and my walnutting was, it's not that I had to push back, but I had to stick up for myself and say, I don't have capacity. It wasn't necessarily a situation of like, whoa, back off, you bitch, you're so annoying. It was more like, this is my limit. I am at it. What I can assist, what I do have capacity for is XYZ. And I had to do that in a manner that, was profesh, but also really still soothed the recovering people pleaser in me. Because you also, Walnut, when you're in a situation and it's somebody that that is close to home, it gets trickier, right? So I had a situation like that where I had to sort of talk about my capacity. And then just today, I've had another sort of straw that broke the camel's back, where I've been asked to extend on something that I just physically cannot do. And I had already had a phone call this morning where I've been told off by somebody, and I just like burst into tears. That's why I look like the way I do on this episode today, because I haven't really bothered to groom myself. And again, I've had to push back and say, I'm not comfortable in a corporate sense. I'm not comfortable with this. I don't have capacity for this. I don't want to do this, and this is what my priorities are. And it's an awkward feeling to raise it, because one, there's a little bit of ego in there, like, people think that people, what are they going to think of me that I can't do my job? Or, um, oh, is she just using her condition as an excuse? Or, she's just so any of the things that I am thinking up in my head that it's like bully demon-esque about not being capable of doing stuff. Um, so I've really had to reality check myself and back myself with what I say, and um I think what's really helped me, Walnut, is I've gone back and get like it's really political though, right? Like had to evidence gather where it said the work that I was going to do and what I'm doing, and I am doing more. So yeah, I just feel just a little bit like a squeezed up little prune. Um, and I've had to be brave, and I can't even really bask and celebrate in my walnutting at the moment, just because all I'm thinking is and just being a little vulnerable with you here now, Walnut. All I'm thinking is, because what's the fucking next thing someone else is going to ask me? Because I just feel like I've got this blinking traffic, headlight thingy on me saying all signs point to ask your random questions here and ask the person who's just going to fix it and do stuff. Um, and I just don't know what to do. I feel like I've got lots of like balls juggling in the air and waiting on people to decide stuff. And meanwhile I'm getting all these like anyway, it's corporate work, storm in a teapot stuff. But I have walnutted nonetheless and pushed back a little bit, and noted my capacity. I've backed myself, I've stood up for myself. And so that is something to really be proud of. And like I say, I'm working on being able to celebrate that I did that. And maybe in a few days' time, when things have kind of cooled down, I will be able to. But for now, I just wanted to share in raw, real time, like while I am just drained and exhausted, um, what I'm kind of what's kind of going on. And in typical, at the time of recording, Mercury is in retrograde. um my last meant to be when I did the first walnutting of the pushback, where I sat and with literally a whole day's worth of anxiety because I had to say no to somebody. And that still happens. I think I talked about this with you already, but that same day, Walnut, I had a bing bong on my phone. I had left early. I had had enough. I had already had a tear in the morning and had to like hide my tears when people arrived in the office in the morning, just because I was like, what else is someone going to ask me to do today? I just can't. And so I'd already had a day. I had started early, so I had left early, and I was like, great. And Geordie wasn't feeling well, so I'd stopped at the supermarket to get some supplies. And when I got in the car after the supermarket, I got a bing bong on my phone saying counseling in 30 minutes. It's like, I was like, what? I was like, this is either perfectly timed or what the fuck is this? Completely just had forgotten about my appointment. Um, and went to therapy. I had to come home first because I had cold stuff in the fridge. But yeah, anyway, I made it to the appointment on time. Everything was fine. And it couldn't have been a better time to actually have the appointment. But I did advise at the start, I was like, I've had a day. I might cry. And I did. Um, and we ended up talking about a couple of other little things where the stuff I've already raised with you, Walnut, but then also conversations with people who don't match our level. And because I was talking about how you've got all this draining stuff, and then you have other, like in social circumstances or whatever, comments made and how we receive them and stuff like that. And the other part of this episode that I wanted to share, Walnut, is like a communication tactic, which she kind of like drew on the board. So people talk to you like a parent, like an adult, and like a child. And so if you imagine parent, adult, child in a list, and then next to it, parent, adult, child on a list, normally we want to have adult to adult conversations, but in socialness, in girl battle bitchiness in corporate underlying, you know, active listening. You say it, but you don't actually say it words. We talk to each other in these sort of different ways. Even the way that I said no in corporate is different to how I would have said no to Geordie or someone socially, right? Um, and we got to talking about how when you're talking as a parent, that's kind of like that, like conditioning, kind of like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Why are you doing that? That kind of like almost bully demon borderline stuff. And sometimes it's like projecting onto the person. So ah, I wish I had rehearsed this walnut so I could kind of articulate what I mean. But basically, I learned that, we usually do want adult to adult conversation and those are the situations where you're safe, you're in a good environment, you're not worried about what other people think or say or feel. You can just talk and it's mutual and it's received and it's given and it's like equal. But then there are other conversations where there's a sly comment and it's like a parent talking to a child or a child trying to talk to an adult. And there's all this miscommunication trying to read between the lines and wondering what the hell's going on. And yeah, so it's kind of like a connect the dots with how people speak to you and requires lots of active listening and things. But I thought that was just a really interesting thing to bring back to you, Walnut, in terms of like walnut communication, because there are just so many different ways that people communicate to us and with us. And more often than not, and I find especially in like a corporate or work context or in like bitchy social context, it's not adult to adult. It's you know, either fully loaded with conditioning and shoulds and people pleasing, or it's from like a total childish, naive way of thinking that's not very emotionally intelligent, trying to talk to you in adult, but it's kind of disguised as being adult, but it's not. If that kind of makes sense, Walnut. So, um, I just wanted to share that with you, Walnut. And yeah, my walnuttings this week is I had to back myself. I stood up for myself, but I'm still unfortunately so tired that and nervous and anxious that I'm just going to keep getting asked more things and get told off for more things. Um, I don't really have a full result of this feeling yet, but just to showcase in the name of walnutting, despite how I feel and all of the things, I have still walnutted and I still have not given up and I still have deemed myself worthy enough to say no. And even though I feel burnt out, I have done an actual action to not progress that burnout even further. And um, I think that's kind of a big deal in itself, right? Even though even though I just like want to stay home and go to sleep and not have to deal with any of these things. Funnily enough, Walnut, I was talking in counseling as well. And then I was sort of saying about I'm in service everywhere, right? Like, my job, Walnut Wednesday. And then I was saying, and look how much time I have spent crying and wasting over what we've talked about. I talked about my bad day and my corporate and communication and all the things when I'm doing exactly the same thing for my PA work for Elliot Rose. And I'm in service. I do what I'm told. I am a assistant on that front as well. But it's that adult to adult conversation. It is genuine. It is safe. I can say how I'm feeling. She can say how she is feeling, and it lights me up. I'm excited to talk about it. Um, so yeah, long may it last that, well, not long may it last. Hopefully, very, very soon the tables will turn where, um, like I've been talking about for a long time and manifesting for a long time, that the corporate stuff becomes the side hustle, or even just not even a hustle at all, becomes a nothing. And then I can do this PA book stuff a lot more, because that's where my heart's kind of sitting at the moment. If, with Walnut Time and Elliot Rose stuff. So yeah, just a funny observation, right? We spent all of this time talking about all the murky, gooey, sticky, icky stuff. Yet exactly the same thing with the sunshine and rainbow, and it doesn't take up as much space. So anyway, there's just a food for thought about the rainbows and the rain at the same time, and where we want to eagle eye our focus on, which is easier said than done as well. So on that, I'm going to close this episode here, Walnut. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I didn't storm in a teapot you so much, but I hope there's something that you can pick up from this episode. But if anything, just remember to back yourself, and remember that you're worthy of backing yourself and sticking up for yourself and saying no or yes, or whatever the decision is for you, not for somebody else, because you don't owe anybody anything, but you owe yourself a lot more credit, because you're amazing. Have a happy Walnut Wednesday, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.